I sit and I stare. I sit and I watch. I sit and I listen. I sit and I listen. I sit and I listen. I sit and hide. I sit and hide. I sit and hide and I sit. And I sit. And I sit. And I stare. And I stare. And I stare. And I hear. And I hear. And I hear. And I hear. But no matter how hard I work to meet the needs of the drug selling, dominance, addictions, I can't stop hearing, I can't stop seeing, I can't stop hearing, I can't stop hearing. And then suddenly, some mysterious man starts talking, and some woman cries, "Wolf!" I sit and I stare. I sit, I see, and I hear my voice. But I can't hide, I can't die, I can't find a place where I'm not abused and I don't suffer. And I don't get bullied. And I don't get told by some man his dominance, his fake knife, and his foot on my door are the rule of law called science fiction, Islam, and some Hindu veteran who says to me, I'm a bitch and I'm smart, his girlfriend says when I hear a voice and I see a face and I hear a story about a drug addiction. And I sit and I stare and I stare. And the room never leaves. My body doesn't die. I sit and I wait. I sit and I stare. I sit and I listen. And then I hear footsteps and I hear echoes. And I hear awareness, dominance. And I hear some man and some woman. And I stare and I stare. And the bird doesn't fly. The eagle doesn't soar. But gosh darn, those who have a disability have no where to live. Where there's not a man who says I'm not free until he's free to sell his drugs, until he's free to smoke his crack and puff his meth. I sit and I stare and I stare. And I hear those whispers and those voices, and I hear those bugs crawling on the floor. And I hear the cockroaches in bed, insects eating my skin. And I stare at a wall, and I stare at a wall, and I stare at a wall. And I hear my refrigerator, and I hear my refrigerator, but I never hear a counselor, social worker who decided I was an unnecessary appointment on their schedule, on their calendar, and my eye contact was not appropriate, and I was too dangerous, and I was a problem. And so they ignored me. And so they said, we'll talk tomorrow. And they said, we'll talk tomorrow. And tomorrow's yesterday, and yesterday was yesterday. And now there's no one to say, who's the man? Who's the creepy, masculine, dominant human whose disability doesn't have PTSD and autism, whose disability appears similar to some pimp who's got a prostitute and some drugs and a hotel room in a house where they rent a room. And I hear a bathroom fan. And I hear electricity. And I feel the sweat on my hands, not knowing, will they come over and do what Nathan Earl Dodd did at the other community house, mental health, residence, where women were controlled by men and feminists dominated their male counterparts. And they all lived together and had stuff to do and drugs to smoke and swallow and snort. And I sit and I stare until the sun has no more light. And I sit and I stare until I hear no more birds. And I sit and I stare and I sit and I sit and I sit until I put in my earplugs to not hear. And I sit and I sit and I sit and I stare and I stare and I stare and I hear Joe Biden's voice. And remember, Mr. President, Joe Biden has a car, has a house, has a life, has a career. And I stare and I sit and I sit. And my skin stays white. And I stay and I sit and have nowhere to go, no money to spend. And I hear a beeping and I hear until I fall asleep and dream about not hearing and not seeing and living deaf, blind, and near death now.